Tough Day and Band of Sisters presents Smart by Design, Building Tuffy's Brain.
I am KBJ, the co-founder and CEO of Tough Day, and we make AI that is a workplace advisor. We call that AI Tuffy. And Tuffy's confidential expert guidance on demand for workers of all levels to get the guidance that they need in the workplace, whether that's management, HR, even legally compliant advice that helps them navigate tricky situations and their careers. What makes our product so smart is content partners like Charter and the Band of Sisters, who are here with me today to talk about their content. And I'm thrilled that they are joining us as Tough Day content partners. The Band of Sisters are 6 outstanding executive women who've seen it all from the first rung to the boardroom. They wrote a book called You Should Smile More. It is super memorable and an entertaining read about the workplace and workplace culture and modern leadership. We'll talk with them today. We have Angelique Belmer-Krems and Lori Marcus with us. Angelique is a chief marketing officer, advisor, keynote speaker, and board director, and a founding member of the Band of Sisters. Angelique spent 23 years at PepsiCo with roles including VP of Brand Pepsi in the US and US Regional CMO. After PepsiCo, she was EVP and CMO at News America Marketing, then Global Head of Brand at BlackRock. And she is currently a CMO in residence at A-Team, working with a portfolio of VC and PE-backed brands on AI transformation. Lori Marcus is a corporate board director, executive coach, and founding member of the Band of Sisters. Lori spent 24 years at PepsiCo in multiple roles, including senior vice president of marketing activation. And after PepsiCo, she served as a C-suite executive at the Children's Place retail stores, Keurig, Green Mountain Coffee, right? Or is that... Sorry.
Green Mountain, yeah.
And Peloton. Lori has significant board experience and presently sits on the boards of Fresh Del Monte Produce and 24 Hour Fitness. Welcome, Lori and Angelique.
Thanks for Great to be here.
It's really exciting to be with the Charter community. A lot of amazing people out in the audience, and I'm thrilled to introduce you to everyone. I guess to start, I thought we could just dive in and would love to hear about what inspired you to write this book, You Should Smile More.
So maybe I'll start. By the way, I guess like any good author, I should hold up. It's in Angelique's back, but I feel like I should always hold up a copy of the book. And those of you who have ever been told to smile more, maybe you'll get a kick out of the title, which is a little bit cheeky. But the short story is we didn't set out to write a book. We were actually together at a dinner with Indra Nooyi back in 2019. Yeah. And Indra had just retired as the CEO and the chair of the board of PepsiCo. And we were at this small dinner, maybe 6 or 7 of us. And the funny thing was, very sort of, as most good things happen in life, unplanned, we got into this really intense discussion about it started out me talking about that I was one of the original co-founders of the first ever women's resource network at PepsiCo back in 1993. So later, if we talk about generations in the workplace, you can note this moment of like 1993. That was a long time ago. Wonder how many people on the call were not even born yet. But anyway,
there were ERGs back then.
There were no ERGs. I mean, those words didn't exist. We probably did it all by like having, writing memos and having our admin assistants type them and put them in the mail. And so, but the point is, we have this very organic discussion about the little things in work, the little things that made us feel like we didn't fully belong and we couldn't bring our full selves to work. And that little discussion in Greenwich, Connecticut in 2019 led to another discussion, which led to some keynote speaking, throw in a pandemic for extra credit. and it turned into a book. And then we've been out there speaking at companies and conferences for the past 3 years about leadership and culture in the workplace.
And I'll build one quick thing on that, which is as we started writing down these little things that we could remember that we had experienced, one of the things that we realized quickly is we don't want to say this is for women to solve. So here's what women need to do. So we very quickly went to how do we capture both what women can do, but also what witnesses in the room can do to be allies and what leaders should do. So those three audiences are super important to us, those different perspectives. So we really work hard to make sure we're calling men into the conversation, not calling men out, call men in, and also make sure that it's not a one size fits all kind of answer. There's 6 of us that wrote this book together, which is a whole different podcast. But we preserved the differences of opinion because we are different, women are different, right? And so we wanted to make sure we could show all the different answers to how do you navigate this workplace.
Well, and I'm sure as leaders in your respective roles, there are a lot of allies that helped you along the way. And that's great lessons for all of us. I think I've heard you talk about the unwritten rules of business, and everyone kind of has to navigate those in their own workplace. I'm very curious if you can help us understand, what do you mean by the unwritten rules? And also, are they the same in every organization? Are there like common unwritten rules, or are they all really discretely different in each organization?
This might be my favorite topic. We worked at PepsiCo for a long time, and PepsiCo is an incredible company, and they invest so much in their leaders and leadership training and all that. And they're a brand and marketing company. So everything they do has like a logo lockup, and it's laminated and it has a name and whatever. And, whether it's mission, vision, values, like all that stuff is written down. There's a lot of posters, there's a lot of stuff. And in every company, it's not the stuff that's written down that matters. Like culture is about, in any company, it's about how decisions are made. It's about what's valued. It's often about what is unsaid, not what's sort of brought out for you, as part of your orientation. So, culture is so important, and the unwritten rules are part of culture. And what we've spent a lot of time learning about and talking about is these unwritten rules aren't good or bad. They just are. Now, where the unconscious bias comes in is oftentimes women, underrepresented groups are not always kind of clued in and brought in to the informal networks of like understanding what the unwritten rules are. But there's some that I think are universal across companies. So, I've probably worked in 4 or 5 companies over my career, and I've been on, and I don't know, probably close to 10 different corporate boards. There's some things that are fairly universal. I'll give you an example of one that we talk about, which is the meeting before the meeting. Typically in everyone's career, they have some moment where they learn that like the meeting itself is only part of how decision gets made. There's the pre-wiring before the meeting. There's the kind of the afterglow after the meeting, the kind of the wiring that happens after that, sometimes damage control, sometimes follow-up. But I think most companies have some sort of a culture around that the meeting isn't just the meeting, that's part of a 3-part harmony or 4-part harmony. In some companies, they actually sort of institutionalize the pregame and the pre-wire. Other companies are a little bit more discreet about it. But that's probably a good example of something that people learn early in their career. But then I think there's a lot of other examples, and Angelique, you might have a couple from working in different industries that are maybe unique to a company or an industry that are not universal.
Well, I'll give a quick example of an unwritten rule that it's a common thing, but how it works is different company to company, which is, how decisions are made and communicated. Like, does no mean no? Or how do you get a soft no? Or, a hard yes versus a soft yes, and all that complicating thing. Like you don't even realize it's happening, you know. And
Yes.
I've mentored many young people who would say, but they agreed to this, you know, and but then you understand how they said it and what happened next, and you realize that they didn't actually agree because at that company, here's
Right.
how it works. And these, I would imagine, are it's like this is very confusing to young people entering the workplace who are like, what just happened? But also older people in a new environment, you know. So, you know, it's understanding what's actually going on, I imagine, is often connected to the unwritten rules of behavior in the workplace.
Hmm.
Yeah, one of the reasons why we loved your book and it works so well inside Tuffy's brain, if you will, inside our AI is because you define these challenges really, really well
Hmm.
and provide different options for how to handle them. And especially with the different personalities of the six co-authors,
Yeah.
all of the sisters handling it a little differently, there's a lot of optionality and guidance around what to do.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
I'd love to just dive in a little bit into some of the things that we see in our data in terms of the anonymized topics that are coming in, the kinds of things people are asking our AI. And if
Hmm.
you could share some of your guidance or advice on those topics.
Happy to.
Um,
Yeah.
so one, and speaking of early career, sort of the bottom rung, if you will, the first 5 years of a career, it can be really tricky for folks. And people are wondering, how do I get off on the right foot that sets me up for a whole career? It's not just about, surviving and thriving today, but it's also, what do I need to know about getting to the first rung, if you will, or getting past my first performance review? Any guidance for new workers in the workplace?
Well, this is again a topic near and dear to our heart. I mean, we say we, you know, the band of sisters were from the bottom rung to the boardroom. You know, like we remember what it took to get out of the first level. The research is very interesting on this topic, and there's been studies by McKinsey, the Women in the Workplace, for years. And I think the latest report that just came out, they actually wrote a whole book called The Broken Rung that
Hmm.
talks about that first step from individual contributor to manager that, for example, women get promoted to that first level manager position at a rate of 80 to 100. Like, so for every 100 men, 80 women, and they never catch up. And so, if you really dig into what's happening, like why are women not getting promoted as often as men? Sometimes it has to do with their ability to self promote, you know, and they want to just put their head down and let their work speak for itself. And they think that, trust me, I did that for so many years. It's ridiculous, you know. And looking back, I'm like, could I only have read this book back when I
Yes.
was 25? I would have done things differently. But this goes to, it is not just, it happens to be gendered in the data, but individuals obviously can be better or worse at this. And so understanding how visibility happens,
Mm,
how power works in the company, who has the
Hmm.
power, like who needs to see you and your work, and you know, so that whole topic is super important. And then making sure you're getting work that is valuable. Like again, women often do get assigned non-promotable work, and you know, if you're, you
Hmm.
know, spending all your time on the United Way event and that's not going to count towards promotion, you know, you don't have as much energy to put towards the actual promotable work. And just even knowing that that's a thing helps you navigate your boundaries and communicate more effectively about what do I need to do to get promoted and understand the feedback that you get
Hmm.
back.
it's fascinating. So like a layer of inner dialogue about any of those opportunities. They may not be opportunities. It's fascinating.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's just imagine you've gotten good at self promotion, getting the visibility. You get a great opportunity. You prove yourself. You become a manager for the first time. Maybe they sent you to manager training. Maybe not.
If you're lucky.
If you're lucky, maybe you've had some kind of course on that and somewhere sometime. But for many first-time managers, it's just really tough. Like number one, all of a sudden, people who may have been your peers are now reporting to you.
Hmm.
You're responsible for performance reviews. Maybe finding balance with, micromanaging and putting your fingers into things and or maybe being a macro manager and not really giving enough guidance. Lori, can you talk about sort of first-time manager challenges and how you provide
Yeah.
guidance?
Again, I feel very fortunate in hindsight. I can remember, Angelique, I don't know if you remember this. We literally had a class at Pepsi, which was like first time manager training. And it acknowledged that it's always challenging to be a manager, but being a first time manager is especially, it can be especially challenging for all the reasons, KBJ, that you said, and lots of others as well. And so I actually think it's interesting, not to be like a paid ad for Tuffy, but this is one of the ways that Tough Day can be really helpful, which is someone said this to me recently. She was like, I didn't know how to write a performance review. So she said, I just dumped all this stuff into my private LLM and said, like, how would I write this up in a performance review in a way that is productive? But anyway, so I think there's even more challenges today. The good news is there's actually more real-time tools that people would use. But to answer your question more succinctly, one of the things that I would say is, think about as a first time manager, like it's a thing in and of itself. I think for many people, they're just like, oh yeah, now I have people reporting to me. And if you had a new project or like a new brand that you were managing, a new account, you wouldn't just take it as like, oh yeah, it's like an add-on. You would sort of acknowledge it and honor it. And I think being a manager is the same thing. So even things like a good place to start is, what's the process and the infrastructure around being a manager? Are you going to have weekly one-on-ones with somebody? Or are you going to have every other week one-on-ones with somebody? But I would start with the premise that there's going to be some structure around that. And I think nobody is a monolith. So I know we love to talk about like women this and Gen X this and millennials that, but I think understanding yourself as a manager, your preferences, but as importantly, the person or people that you're managing, what's their preference? How do they like to get feedback, written versus, kind of in real time? And how do you use Slack versus text versus an email message? And I think sort of honoring and understanding the process and the rituals around being a manager is very important. And I think a lot of people overlook it. So let me take a breath and pause there. And by the way, that doesn't change after you've been managing for 10 years or 20 years or 30 years. I think the part that people forget is that to understand that it's a little bit about how you like to operate as a manager. And equally for great managers, they understand how the people like to receive being managed and to find something that works for both of you.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I think building on that, one of the things that we're asked all the time, or we see in the data, is change management. And so you're managing a team, everything's going well, but all of a sudden there's a reorg, there's new strategy, new process, whatever it is, and you've got to move the team. And we hear from managers things like, "Oh my gosh, like I've communicated it 5 times, but people aren't doing something different. They're not following along, or I'm not even sure I understand why this is happening." And there's some managing up and like consuming what is coming to you. You're kind of like stuck in the middle and you're responsible for moving the organization. Any guidance for those managers in that situation, or those leaders who are navigating org change or just change management?
Oh my gosh, this is, such a often needed topic in corporate life, right? Because there's, and in the environment today, there's a lot, of complicated things going on, sensitive things going on. And so I'm thinking of an example, actually, like return to office policies. This is actually something that, we get asked a lot about also. And you have to be sensitive how you communicate it. And it could be that you're a manager communicating a policy that you're not totally believing in yourself, and yet you still have to toe the line, but you want to be respectful of, all that. Obviously it's about communication and making sure you have thought about the points that you're trying to make, but then also in the dialogue of like, what are people hearing and how do they, let them play it back to you. This is like, I guess maybe the famous Angelique-ism that the Band of Sisters talks about is I'm a big fan of let me play that back to you. Because in any tough conversation, it could be a feedback session, it could be a change management type of thing. um, Either you ask the person, can you tell me what you heard? If you're the manager and you're asking the employee to play it back, or very often I'm the one that says, can I play that back to you and just make sure I check for understanding? And then when you put it in your own words and with your own language, it often helps you even articulate what you don't understand or the other person notice what you don't understand. It's just such a useful tool. I couldn't say it often enough. Very useful.
I love that you do that all the time, Angelique. And, we laugh when you do it because it's like, oh, ABK is going to say, can I play this back to you?
I love it more when you do it. And give me credit.
But I think just to build on that, it's interesting, KBJ, when you asked the question, the first thing that came to my mind is we have so many different methods of communicating with each other, whether it's like email or Slack or Teams or text or whatever. And yet, this is cliche, but like we have never been talking past each other more, right? And one of the things that is especially challenging is digital communication or written communication in general. It lacks tonality. And so people read into it a lot. So I think one of the things that has become, people are talking about a lot, and I have a lot of heart for it, which is the power of what used to be called soft skills, I would now call power skills. So all the things like we always talk about, like the kind of some of the mundane work that we used to do, AI will do some of that for us. And so the thing that is going to be more important is the vulnerability, the trust, the communication, the did I hear this right, tracking your impact. How is this landing with people? What are they saying versus how are they really receiving it? And I think, what Angelique was talking about, it doesn't take her an hour to reframe something. It might take her a minute or two. And so rather than rushing off the meeting or clicking off the Zoom or the Teams, like to the extent that you can shorten the time that you're spending presenting or talking at each other and leave more time for the check for understanding, understanding intellectually, but also understanding how is it actually landing and what's unsaid. I think that's going to become more and more important as the pace of change continues to accelerate.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I wish that we could talk for hours. I just always learn so much when we're together. And the good news is everyone out there can get your book. You Should Smile More, and we'll make sure you get a code. 10 lucky people will receive a signed copy of You Should Smile More. We'll send it out to you. Use the QR code to enter to win one of those. And then, of course, you can continue the conversation inside Tough Day. So everyone at the conference has access to Tough Day. Most people get one month trial for free, but you can also win a 3-month pilot for your organization on that QR code. So please do sign up. We'd love to welcome you and your colleagues to Tough Day. There's so much goodness from the Band of Sisters in here and Charter and others, and look forward to working with all of you. And any other closing thoughts, Lori and Angelique?
I'm just really grateful for the Tough Day platform because, as we were thinking of how to expand our impact and like help get our message out there, what could be better than an AI amplified platform for workplace resilience? Like it's exactly what we were hoping for.
Well, thank you for that.
And I would say to that, again, we talk a lot about generations in the workplace. We talk a lot about, Gen X and millennials. I would say, as somebody who was earning a manager in 1993, what I love about Tough Day is it's a way of kind of like pulling us into technology in a way that is really safe and easy, and very helpful. And it's been amazing. So thank you for the partnership.
This from the Band of Sisters in here and Charter and others, and look forward to working with all of you. And any other closing thoughts, Lori and Angelique?
I'm just really grateful for the Tough Day platform because, as we were thinking of how to expand our impact and like get our message out there, what could be better than an AI amplified platform for workplace resilience? Like it's exactly what we were hoping for.
Well, thank you
Yes.
for that.
And I would say to that, again, we talk a lot about generations in the workplace. We talk a lot about, Gen X and millennials. I would say, as somebody who was earning a manager in 1993, what I love about Tough Day is it's a way of kind of like pulling us into technology in a way that is really safe and easy, and very helpful. And it's been amazing. So thank you for the partnership.
Thank you. Thank you. All right. Have a wonderful day, everyone.